What is up, you all? We're back with another video, and today we're going to be talking more about Stranger Things Season 5. Before we get into it, definitely smash the like button because it definitely helps, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So to get into this, I want to talk about a few things that I think could happen from what we got recently with the teaser and the knowledge we have on Stranger Things Season 5. So starting off with Will Byers, we know that we saw this scene with him yelling, "Run!" And I'm thinking that that scene right there is going to be a big part of Season 5, possibly towards like the final volumes of Season 5. And I want to say Steve is going to be involved in that scene, and we've been hearing about it possibly being in a military base or a barn. But I think that one thing that's going to happen with Will Byers is that he's going to be getting controlled by Vecna, because we've seen in Season 4 that Vecna's obviously still connected to him along with the Upside Down, and he's just been being real hush about it. So this goes all the way back to the vanishing of Will Byers. And remember, he had like this, you know, the vines and part of the Upside Down involved with his body and everything. So I think that that's still there, and we're going to see more of that actually come out of him at a point. And I think it's going to play a part in him actually being possessed, but he's going to have powers off of him being possessed. Because I'm seeing a lot of people say, is he going to be possessed, or is he going to be just having powers? I think that with him being possessed and Vecna controlling him is what's going to give him powers. I don't think that Will Byers is going to have like these telekinetic powers like 11 off of him being a good guy. I think that's going to add more depth with him having powers, being controlled by Vecna, and him going up against his friends at a point. And I think that when you sit here and think about Will Byers, it makes sense, because this arc that he's been having lately with Stranger Things Season 5, it's been this arc where they're setting his character up for us to feel sorry for him, because he has not been connected with his friends. They have turned their back on him. He feels like he's alone, to the point he was hanging with Jonathan and Argyle. You know, he wasn't really with the main group of kids. So it's kind of shutting him out. They were shutting him out. And we seen this drawing with him, you know, and his friends going up against like a three-headed dragon. I think that could potentially be a creature in Season 5, but I don't know. I could be wrong. But I do see him and 11 going up against each other. But I don't think it's going to be like one of those type of battles where, you know, it's something where, you know, one of them is going to get took out from each other, battling each other. I think if Will or 11 is going to die, it's going to be because of Vecna. But I think they might go back and forth at a point, because 11 is going to be trying to help Will. And I think how we're going to know that something's going on with Will is possibly because of Max Mayfield, because of her conscience still being stuck in Vecna's curse. And, you know, we seen basically Lucas have the boom box next to her while she's on bed rest. I think he's going to be using that to help tap in with her conscience and stuff like that. But I do think Max, that's going to be her role, helping them from the other side until she's able to come back to reality and help her friends. But yeah, I think that 11 and Will are definitely going to have a face-off, because it's going to be to the point Will is going to be so powerful he might hurt people around him, but I don't think he's going to hurt like the main core kids, or he might hurt someone's parents or something. That would be crazy if Will actually takes out Ted Wheeler or something like that. And I think that when he's saying you need to run, it could be two things. Maybe since he's connected to Vecna, that he can feel when he's coming around, or, you know, when something dangerous is coming around, because he's so connected, and he can kind of almost see where he's navigating through Hawkins. Or it's because he feels that, you know, he's getting possessed and he can hurt one of his friends. So I definitely think that Will's going to have powers, but it's not going to be for a good reason. It's going to be because I think that Vecna is going to control Will Byers. He's going to be controlling him, and Will Byers is going to be his eyes. And, you know, Will might start acting weird here and there, and you guys know how that could potentially play out, especially with Mike Wheeler, 11, and everything. Now, I see Dustin being in, you know, a lot with the older kids when it comes down to, you know, everything. But I feel like with the final act, he's definitely going to be with the core of the kids. I see Dustin going through a lot from him losing Eddie Munson, and him getting a lot of, you know, consequences. Obviously, he's going to be getting bullied and stuff like that because of Eddie Munson and what he stood for. And they're thinking that he's, you know, a part of a cult or something like that. But one thing I do want to talk about is these new group of kids that we see in this picture with Mike, and he's trying to protect them. And one of the kids' names was Derek. I can see Holly Wheeler in those group of kids actually having their own side story going on. And I think that one thing that may happen is that Holly Wheeler's going to get in trouble. Now, everybody's been saying this, including myself. We saying at first it was going to be the vanishing of Jane Hopper, but now that, you know, you kind of lock in with this teaser, it feels like it's going to be more of the vanishing of Holly Wheeler. Once again, I think the reason it could be Holly Wheeler is because it can bring Mike closer to Will, because it's his little sister getting took now, and he's going to have to go to Will for advice, like, what happened? How do you do this? What was going on down there? And I think that for real, you know what might be crazy? Will might actually be responsible for Holly Wheeler vanishing, if it even happens with Holly Wheeler. You know what I'm saying? I think because you got to think about it. When Will went vanishing, it was because 11 opened the gates, the Demogorgons came, and boom, he went to the upside down. He had the vine in his mouth. I think personally that actually is crazy too. I think that's going to return, like the vine. I think it's something with that, because obviously that was feeding the upside down and the vines and the darkness into Will. I think what has still been in his system, we're going to see something like a flashback of what really happened down there in the upside down, when he was just sitting in that nest of the upside down with the vines and everything. That's going to return somehow, some way. I can feel it. But I do feel that if Holly Wheeler gets took, it's going to bring either Will and Mike to the front line, because he's going to obviously ask, we're like, wow, what's going on? Like, you went there before. Why is Holly, you know, down there? Or I can be wrong about what I just said with Holly Wheeler, or it can be something where Will actually hurts Holly Wheeler, you know, and he takes her or something. But that's just me talking. I think that, you know, Will's going to play a big part significantly in season 5, because it started with him, it's going to end with him. That's literally the most blunt I can say it. It started with Will Byers, so it has to end with him. It started with 11, so it has to end with her. Those two are up for grabs. I do think some parents are going to get X'd out, and some older kids. But one thing I want to say once again, I feel like when it comes down to the final just moments, it's going to be 11 and Vecna face off, because of this reason. We seen in the Rainbow Room how the gates opened in the first place, right? Where because 11 pushed Vecna or 1 through this gate. I think they're going to go back to that moment, but this time it's going to be like the end where they have to fight again. And I think that in order for 11 to beat Vecna, she's going to have to sacrifice herself. And that's what's going to close the gates. Somehow, some way, it's going to do something. It's going to have to be something where 11's going to have to put herself on the line to close these gates. Like, maybe she has to use so much power that it's going to, you know, be one of those moments where, like, for example, one of the characters say, if 11 does this, she's going to, like, take herself out, and 11's like, I gotta do it, and, you know, and she does it, and it takes out Vecna, but at the same time, and it takes out 11, but it eliminates Vecna. So Vecna wins off the simple fact that he took 11 with him. You see what I'm saying? I think the fact that they're both going to die together is going to be full circle, but I can be wrong. I know that's a lot, but really think about that, y'all. How it began is how it's going to end. That's how Stranger Things, when I look at this show fully now, how it begins is how it's going to end. That's how they've been telling us this whole time. And the Duffer said they want everything to be full circle, so it all makes sense. So yeah, you all comment down below how you feel about everything we just talked about. What do you think will happen to Stranger Things season 5, and, you know, the finale and everything? Meet me down in the comments. Follow me on all my social medias at ILIKESCARY. With that being said, I will see you all in the next one. Over and out.